Welcome to the Black Experience Japan. My name is Ranzo and I do a lot of live streams from Japan, and people keep asking me like, what is it like being a black person in Japan? And the thing is, I want to give people like a well-rounded perspective, or perspective from other people, not just my own. So what I did was I got people from all over Tokyo to share their experiences, and I want you guys to understand that the experience is the experience of the individual. So your experience might be similar, it might be very different, right? Because there's a plethora of factors that goes into influencing your experience. So you're gonna see that these experiences varies. Like there are some that are one way, some that are totally different.
What drew me to Japan was the culture here. So when I was discussing about possibly procuring a job here, I was open to the idea because I had some friends in college who were from Japan, and they were international exchange students, and they were just the best. They were the sweetest people. Their style was amazing. Their experiences and the peace in which they talked about when they lived in Japan and growing up in Japan drew me to the culture. I was looking for that peace. So yeah, I, as well as my boyfriend, just picked up and we came to Japan and actually experienced everything that I thought it would be.
I had just graduated college, and my brother had been in the military in Korea. I had some friends that taught in Korea, some friends that taught in China. And I was like, hey, I'm in the prime of my life. I'm not married, I have no children. Let's be adventurous. Let's go somewhere no one has been before in my family. So I said, I woke up one morning after Christmas and just started applying to jobs. And Japan was the first one that got back to me.
When I first came to Japan, before I came to Japan, I was actually studying Japanese. So I majored in Japanese in my university. And that was essentially on just a whim. My buddy and I were like, well, if we study Japanese, they're building all these Japanese plants, automotive plants and factories in the US, and we wanted to build robots. So we started studying Japanese. We thought we'd have an edge in the job market. I was studying Japanese. I'd studied for about 2 years, and then I came on an exchange program during the summer, and then I came back. And then later on I found a job online, and that's actually how I got here and have stayed here for these last 17 years.
About 4 or 5 years ago, I had a friend from Jamaica who came here to Japan. From that time, he was telling me that Japan is a pretty good place. There's a lot of opportunities here. So he was convincing me to come, but I wasn't really too interested. I had my own things going on back home. Fast forward maybe about 2-3 years ago, he visited Jamaica with 3 Japanese friends. It was him and 3 Japanese girls. We hung out together, and that was my first time really socializing with Japanese people, you know. And from what I observed from them, I felt like they were pretty interesting people, just their mannerism, and that kind of got me interested in Japanese culture. The second thing that really added to that was just the fact that I would always see music videos, not just music videos, but videos on YouTube about reggae in Japan, and I love reggae, so I realized it would be an opportunity to continue playing my reggae in Japan. So I guess the combination of both my friend and the reggae opportunity as well, I decided, let me see if it's worth a try.
My husband is a huge fan of Japan anime, and then I've always wanted to travel abroad and teach abroad because I'm a teacher. So when the opportunity came to apply to teach English in Japan, we took it.
I met a Japanese guy in 1993 in New York at a Super Bowl party. And basically a couple months later, he needed a roommate. Well, I needed a roommate, he needed a place to stay. We ended up being roommates, and we started a radio show called Street Flavor that we did in New York and sent the data to Japan. And then eventually they wanted us to come over and do live shows and do a concert. So we ended up bringing Busta Rhymes to Japan. I was the first person to actually, along with my partner, to bring Busta Rhymes to Japan and do a concert. And that was the original draw to Japan.
My parents moved here for work, and at the age of 15 after my junior high school, you know, we didn't kind of have somebody to take care of us and stuff like that. So my parents were like, why don't you join us? I mean, at first it was just holidays, you know, come here for maybe 6 months so you can know the experience of Japan and all that stuff. So we came in for some reason. 8 years later, I'm still here, you know. So yeah, that's how it all began.
Well, as a teenager, I was always fascinated with the Asian culture, especially with ninjas, samurais, kung fu. And so as I became older, I went to an alternative high school in South Florida, Hollywood, Florida, and it was sponsored by Toyota. From that high school, I got a scholarship, did a 2-year college in Broward Community College, in which I did some more studies on Japan and Toyota. Later on, I joined the U.S. military, the U.S. Marine Corps, and my first deployment, I was deployed to Japan, Okinawa, Japan.
I'm studying here. I'm doing my master's in computer science. So it started like 2 years ago. So I've been here for almost 2 years now.
I came to Japan the first time in about 2005. At that time I was in Toronto. I was working as a consultant for a Ford company, actually Lincoln Continental, those cars. So as a consultant for that company, and I had some Japanese friends, so I decided I wanted to travel the world, and Japan was my first place outside of Canada and the US.
I have had really good days, really bad days. So before I moved closer to Tokyo, I lived in Ibaraki Prefecture. And they're a little bit more strict, a little bit more robotic, a little bit more by the rules. There's not a lot of individualism, not a lot of creativity. It's really countryside, kind of just people getting by. And they weren't used to change, and they weren't necessarily, in my opinion, very open to change. So you had the select few that you met outside and on the roads, and they wanted to get to know you, and they were intrigued by you, and it was great. It was awesome energy. And then you had others in the school systems and even in society who were just not used to me, just staring and, you know, just afraid sometimes as well. And then you had others in the workplace who wouldn't even want to address me. You know, they would just be afraid of what my reaction would be, or saying things straightforward if they didn't like something about my appearance, or if they didn't like something about my personality. They would always go through the company and go safe zone. And then you had other people who would just go and put my hair on their heads and take pictures and hug me randomly, and it was awesome. Moving closer to Tokyo was a little bit different. I don't experience being gawked at as much. They're a little bit more used to foreigners, and they're a lot more open and accepting to my change in my workplace. They know that I look different. They're aware. They know that there are people that look like me. There are a lot more people who look like me around the area. So I've had some really good days, and I've had some really good friends, and then I have some really bad days where people can't even believe that I'm here, that I exist, and that people actually walk around looking like this or talking like this.
As a black person in Japan, it's been unique. I found that either there's an extreme level of intrigue, and either they adore you or they ignore you. When I first got here, I lived in a more rural setting, and people weren't used to seeing black people. So we'd walk through the streets and they'd bow to us, but they would stare. I still get stared at. There are much less black men than black women walk around in Japan. So I get stared at. In the schools, they're running their hands through my hair, they're touching my beard, they're touching my stomach. So it's been a unique experience. And then the black men that I have encountered all tend to be like from Africa. So it's very rare to find like a black American male. I think I've encountered maybe 7, and I've been here for a year and a half.
As an African American, I would say there's a few issues, but in general, I think the big problem is a lot of people tend to develop a chip on their shoulder, and you know, once you start to look at it or upon any kind of discrimination, I'm not talking about like racial discrimination or oppression. I'm just talking about just differentiating people. There's once you get beyond that, that's going to happen anywhere. But you have to avoid getting a chip on your shoulder. A lot of people, they consider you as maybe an African person, or they consider you as like from some other country, and they won't even think of you as an American, you know. And even if you tell them you're American multiple times, they won't believe you're American or whatever. They won't. If you tell them you speak English, they won't think you speak English, you know. It is kind of a myriad of black people, you know. So there are people from different countries. So you know, back in the day, there was mostly just military. When I first came here, there was mostly just military people and ex-military people that were African American. And nowadays, I think that shifted. You've got a lot of Africans, you've got a lot of people from other countries. So that's kind of changed the image as well. So, you know, I think really we should be more responsible on how we maintain our image and actually manage our image better.
Well, I remember initially when I reached, I definitely noticed that people were looking at me quite differently because I looked different from them. So, for example, I live in Tokyo, but I live in like the countryside of Tokyo. So many people here, for many people here, I'm the first black person that they've seen face to face. When I just came here, I remember there being sometimes walking to the supermarket and I'd see some old people. They'd be walking towards me, and when they see me, they stop and they cross the road and they walk, and you can see like the fear in their eyes. I remember even seeing some kids. There was one morning I was walking to school. There was this little girl, maybe 3 years old, and she stopped walking and she just had this expression on her face. And it's like she saw an alien, and she was just following me with her eyes. When I reached all the way down the road by the stoplight, I looked back and she was still standing at the same place. I don't know if they have like an image of black people, or if it's just that we're different and they don't know what to think, if we're regular humans or but that's, you know, that's some people. I find there's also other people who are quite, you know, experienced in terms of world affairs. They know that there's different type of people and they're friendly towards different type of people. So it's a mixture so far. When I finished teaching my first year in the Japanese public schooling system, it was a junior high school, and for one of the grades, all of the students wrote like some cards to me, you know, I guess telling me thanks for the year. And there was one student who wrote a card. I'm not sure if it was a boy or a girl, but the card that they wrote, the student was saying, thank you very much for teaching us, you know, I enjoyed your class a lot, and before I met you I thought that all black people were scary, and now I know that you're not scary, so now I think black people are nice. So I think that was the card that stood out most in my memory, just because, you know, it was very at least it was a real experience of that guy. He was sharing his true thoughts.
My experience so far has been good. Obviously, you know, especially in my community, I guess, like, we stick out, but I've never felt like discriminated against. And most times I don't even feel different per se. I don't know, it's kind of weird. I've gotten comfortable. I'm quite comfortable here, living here. So I would say my experience so far has been good.
As a black person living in Japan, my life has been slightly upgraded, even though I know I'm different from everybody else that's around me. When I go to the store, the people bow to me like they bow to a Japanese person. I can go into a store and ask to look at something that I know damn well I can't afford. And they'll put it out on the counter and turn their back and go do what they do as they would a Japanese person. I'm from New York. It was always hard to catch taxis. I can catch a taxi any time of night, any time of day, dark street, light street, taxi stop for me. So overall, even though we're different, we're not Japanese, we get treated the same way by people that are supposed to deliver a service to us, whether it be restaurants, taxis, bars, so on and so forth.
Good and bad, yeah.
Okay.
on the good side, some people will like they just like you because you look different from them. You like, and like I said before, there was a lot of people like me around there. So it's like, whoa, this guy is different. Where are you from? You know, just because you're different, they're trying to talk to you. They're trying to be nice. They feel like, hey, they don't want you to feel like that kind of, you know, being left out kind of stuff. So I was like, yeah. They come up to me trying to ask me where I'm from, how I'm here, you know. I remember one time, this is a funny story, like there's this one neighbors, you know, we get very close, and I was very close with their little kids, you know. And one day she was like, why are you so dark? Is it because you don't take a shower or something? Or like, you know, I didn't know what to say. I just laughed, you know. Like, nah, that's not the case, you know. Like, I was born this way, and she wouldn't understand. Where I live, I used to ride on the train and take a bus for like an hour to get to my high school. And I'll tell you, man, like, the deeper I go, the country it became. So it's like, I'll go to somewhere and I'll be sitting and nobody will sit next to me, you know. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking about. Maybe, you know, I mean, nobody, you know, you can see the bus is full and it's gonna take you an hour to get to where you're going. Like normally everybody's gonna rush for seats and I'm gonna be sitting there and like everybody just standing staring. They feel like sitting but they don't sit. I mean, I don't know why, but like, and like, you know, those kind of feeling, those kind of experience, you know, sometimes.
Did it get better?
At first I felt really bad, but with time I get used to it. You know, you could blame him because you look around, there's nobody like them. So moving to Tokyo has been like one of the best moments of my life right now because I love my job that I'm doing right now. I mean, I get to I talk with a lot of people. I teach different kind of people. I teach Japanese people, I teach Americans, I teach all race. Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's not about where you're from, it's about what you bring to the table. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they give the job to the right person. And that's my experience so far.
When I first came to Japan, wonderful, very open, very welcoming, very interested in the black man or the man or the foreigner, I guess they call it gaijin, but you know, I think my culture was very interesting. We had reggae, dance hall, hip hop, the fashion, the I guess you could say the swagger or the style. So there was a lot of people that was very intrigued. I went back to the States in 2004 for about 4 years, and then I returned in 2008 to Japan. And when I returned, I noticed a very big change. The people wasn't as friendly, wasn't as open. There were a little standoffish than the time prior. But whenever you do meet a nice Japanese person that was open-minded, you felt very welcome.
In the beginning it was really difficult because of the language difference, and also I guess people here, the culture is quite different, right? Because coming from Namibia, people are more open, we're more social, so it's really easy to make friends. But in Japan, people are more reserved. So even in university, if you talk to somebody in class, after school, it's like you don't know each other. So yeah, it was a bit difficult. And also for me, the food was especially difficult because when I first came, I couldn't read the kanji or the hiragana, and I didn't know what were the ingredients, so I couldn't tell what I was eating. So, but later it became easier. And I guess in terms of racial incidents, sometimes you go on the train and you find that nobody wants to sit next to you, or if you sit down and then somebody moves away. But these are like, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. I think at first I used to notice it a lot, and then later on I just started ignoring it, because I guess you get used to it, but it's still annoying. And then the stares, of course, because I guess sometimes they haven't really seen a black person, I guess. But then it does get annoying, but you also get used to it. Okay, I've only spoken about the bad things. The good things, I love it here because it's really safe and it's convenient. In terms of safety, especially as a woman, as a black woman, you can feel safe going anywhere at any time. So, and the convenience, you can basically get whatever you want at any time of the day, most of the time. So these are the things I love most about Japan.
As a black man, I think Japan is quite unique because, you know, Japan gives you an opportunity to actually kind of reinvent, recreate yourself. I mean, if you're in Toronto or New York City, which are hot cities, you know, a lot of people are doing the same things. Now you come to a city like Tokyo, and you're talented. You have some, you know, you have some objectives, some ideas. It's easier for those ideas to pen out in Tokyo. So as a black businessman, you know, it took a long, it's a long road travel. I'm still trying to do business. I'm still trying to connect. Right now, 1000 Springs, we're going to be importing some Australian wine, working with River Falls. So the experience is continuum. First, you know, in Japan, you have to have some Japanese people who actually believe in you. They'll test you. You know, they'll see if you're really who you say you are. And then you basically have to make it happen. I think I think it's a lot easier for foreigners in Japan to be able to make a mark for themselves, coming from a big city like Toronto, coming to Tokyo. I think you're able to definitely focus your art or what you want to do, build connections. You know, Tokyo is huge for building amazing connections, and to be able to leverage those responsibilities for your objective. There's always a negative spin-off. I mean, you're still a foreigner in Tokyo. You know, you have the Japanese who, you know, basically they don't really care to work with you know, international people or global people. They're very you know, into their own thing, but they're different sets of people. But I think, you know, Japan on the whole, it's an international country. You have a lot of amazing Japanese business people who interact with the world. Japanese businesses, they're grand in the world. So I guess, you know, you find your niche within the community in which you live and work, and the greater city on the whole. There's always the ups and downs, but you just have to, you know, you can't really think about that. Believing in yourself and having other people believing you, that's a big thing. So you don't really you try not to think about the negative aspects of anything. Me being black or being black in Tokyo, you know, the way that it is, it's you're a foreigner in Japan. And if they like you, they like you regardless. If they don't like you, as if you're black, white, Indian, doesn't matter.
So in America, they are a lot more straightforward with their racism, right? They know what they don't like. It's usually, you know, the Caucasians against brown people of whatever descent you come from. And they discriminate against you. They don't want you in their businesses. They don't really want to work with you. They're a lot more straightforward with racial slurs and the things that they say and the way that they act. Here, it's a lot more hidden in what they say. So I read a lot of articles, even though I live here, because I want to have a better understanding of the people I'm dealing with and get the perspectives of other people who live here. So it's like systematic racism and even the things that they say. So some Japanese people, many of them actually think that they're more of a superior race, right? So when we do the things that they can do, they're super shocked. So racism here is almost, you're in school, chilling, eating your lunch normally with your chopsticks, and every 2 minutes someone needs to walk by, oh, hashi, sugoi desu ne, jouzu desu ne. And it's like, yeah, I'm not an idiot. I can use chopsticks. It's like everything you do that they can do was just like over the top, like, wow, I can't believe that you are capable of this. So the racism is a little bit different. Even when they go and they just stare on the trains, it's like, wow, I may have seen someone that looks like you on TV before, but here you are. So I'm just going to stare at you until you feel uncomfortable. And I know you feel uncomfortable, but it's okay because this is my country. So you can feel uncomfortable as you want, but I'm going to stop looking when I'm finished, or I'm going to stop talking about you to my neighbor, thinking that you don't speak Japanese or whatever the situation may be, when I feel like it or when I know that you know what I'm saying. So it's a lot different because they're such reserved people. So they do things without knowing, subconsciously. They do these different things that kind of that suppress you and who you are and the things you can do. And then just in society, they expect that you don't speak their language. You come from a different place. You're not going to understand what we're saying and what we think about you. So it's a little bit different.
As far as racism, I've only experienced one instance of racism, and that was at an Indian restaurant. Surprisingly, the man was darker than me and threw my change back in my hand. I guess he got a bit mad because I was asking for water and more water, and I was dehydrated. So I guess it kind of made him mad. But as far as racism, I haven't experienced overt racism. I've experienced racial, not profiling, but I want to say like stigmatizing, like certain stereotypes about black people, and specifically our physical nature. They tend to, especially in the schools, the children are intrigued. They're at that age in puberty where they're intrigued and coming into the full knowledge of their body, and they're aware of different cultural body parts. So they tend to say little fresh things. I have to tell them, you can't talk to me like that. But other than that, man, I haven't experienced racism.
I tend to get actually stopped by police quite frequently, and I think it's because in Japan even, and in the States, you know, I only get stopped when I go through the hood. You know, when I pass through the hood, like if I take a shortcut, or when I you know, so back in LA, you know, I explicitly have to go and move around the hoods and not go through the hoods, because if I go through the hoods, I get stereotyped, I get stopped, and then I have to deal with all that, and I'm always going to get a ticket for whatever piddly thing. But in Japan, they're going to stop you for routine checks. What they do is it's like stop and frisk, and they don't really frisk you all the time unless they suspect that you have something or whatever. But I get stopped maybe from every 2 weeks in some waves into once a month. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's all that great. It also comes from the fact that a lot of Japanese police don't really have anything else to do. And sometimes they just want to talk to a foreigner. Sometimes they just want to practice their English. And I find that the best practice is not to engage in conversation, even if you understand what they're saying. Just give them, you know, your ID once they ask for it, and pretend you don't know what they're talking about, and then they usually let you go.
In Jamaica, there is a bit of a ingrained sort of favoritism towards skin color in a lot of people's minds, coming from way back from slavery, because, you know, people think that, oh, when you're very light skinned, you're nicer. When you're white, you're nice, right? When you're very black, you're black, right? But apart from that, we're all like one people there, so, you know, there's no real prejudice, there's no real overwhelming prejudice towards another black person. I remember when I just went to the States, that was the first time I started seeing overwhelming prejudice towards me because of my skin color. There was one time in the States when I was trying to go on a bus and the bus driver was white. I didn't have the exact change and he didn't let me on the bus, and then the person right behind me didn't have the exact change, a white person, and they had the same dollar bill, the same bill that I had, and he let them on and gave them the change. So I was saying, boy, why couldn't he let me on? In Japan, it's more obvious to me in Japan. The people who are not very comfortable with me because of my appearance, I think it's a little bit more obvious. They, in a strange way, they're not rude. They're not overwhelmingly rude. They won't say rude things, but it's very easy to tell from the mannerism instantly. You know, there'll be some times at schools, there'll be some teachers I always say good morning to, and they make sure not to ever look at me. Whereas there's other teachers, they're very pleasant towards me, you know. So I think wherever you are, it's just up to the individual, you know, regardless of Japan, Europe, the States. There'll always be people who think of you a certain way because of your appearance, and then there'll be other people who look at you as a person regardless of your appearance.
Okay, and what about in the positive?
There's many positives to Japan. The first one that I noticed would be the safety. You know, I walk by supermarkets with liquor bottles outside on display, no staff or no security. Anyone can just grab them and walk, but they're not concerned about that. And I see school children walking home at 11 in the night by themselves. It's pretty safe, generally. Apart from that, also it's a very productive society. The people work very hard, and in that sense, there is a positive from that. Just like gaining that characteristic of being a hardworking person.
There's a difference in the sense that because I'm black and I don't see many other black people, when I do see other black people compared to in Canada, it's like whoa, okay, like, let me acknowledge this person because I don't see a lot of people who look like me. Whereas in Canada, I don't feel necessarily inclined to wave to every black person I see because there's so many of us, at least where I live. But here in Tokyo, there's not that many. So when I do see another black person, I feel inclined to make eye contact, acknowledge them, and most people do the same. So that's the only difference, I would say. I just wanted to add one more thing about racial discrimination or any kind of social awkwardness. I've experienced more, I guess, borderline racism or discrimination, I think, from foreigners within Japan, as opposed to actual Japanese residents here. And it's been quite obvious, actually. So, yeah, I guess that's something to watch for when you do come here, that maybe other foreigners may look at you a certain way or may have that kind of coldness towards you. Whereas usually when I see another foreigner, I'm kind of excited. Oh, somebody who's, different, somebody else who's not Japanese. Oh, let me, say hi or smile or something. But it's very different. It's very, very different because you don't know where people are coming from. With other black people, it's like it doesn't matter. We're black. We're all the same. So there's a easy connection to just say hi or smile. But when it comes to seeing other foreigners, yeah, you might sense a bit of resistance.
Well, I own a barbershop, and it is a business, but right now it's just more like my hustle. I can't really distinguish the difference between back home and here. It's pretty much the same. Getting the place was different, but once I was actually inside the shop, it's business as usual. Getting the place was different because to rent a place, especially commercial space in Japan, you basically need a Japanese person's name on the lease. Then you have to deal with whether the landlord even wants a foreigner or not. Or shall I say, that's first. Deal with the landlord wanting a foreigner or not. Then if the landlord says, okay, I'll accept a foreigner, now you have to have a Japanese name on the lease. Other than that, it's basically, the same. Once I open up the shop, brothers come, they need haircuts, and that's it.
It's a big difference, like traditional wise, like culture wise, Ghana and Japan, it's a big difference. And for me, it was very hard to kind of learn to adjust it, because when I first moved, you could tell, like, wow, this is different, like the way they walk, the way they talk, eat, even the language was different. And I wasn't in Tokyo at that time, it was a little bit countryside, Kanagawa, close to Machida someplace, and it's like you don't get to see a lot of foreigners and all that kind of stuff, so it's a lot of Japanese, and that kind of environment forced me to become more Japanese, like to learn the language, to learn how to talk and all the stuff, so I could adjust my life to them.
Where I live, I'm probably the only black woman there, so you do get stared at a lot. And then like you're just doing normal things, right? You're going shopping and people are like staring at you, so you feel weird. But at home you're like, obviously almost everybody looks alike, so no staring there. And also people feel like they have to touch you sometimes. Like they touch your skin or they touch your hair. I mean, you smile and you laugh it off, but it's still uncomfortable. So I think these are the differences, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a huge difference. For example, for me, primarily as an educator, an agent, a consultant in the entertainment world. Like I said, being black here in Tokyo, it's for me, it's better because you're able to create the image where you're a natural teacher. Like in Japan, for example, in the school system, they don't have black history. They don't know that Africa is the richest continent on the planet. It's where all the world's resources is basically from Africa. They don't really know that. They don't teach that in school. So a lot of the young people, they grow up thinking Africa is poor. They don't know that Africa is one of the richest place in the world. So as a black man, I came here as a teacher. I need to set the standard of letting them know about black culture. And I think that's an opportunity for me here. Every black person here is to stand out and to teach your culture, to show what black culture is really all about. The love, and sharing the music, the art, that's the vibe that we bring, whether we're from Caribbean islands or we're from African countries or just other places in the world. So I think the difference in terms of Toronto, there are many black people in Toronto. It's very cultured with black people from all over the world. So, in schools they teach cultural studies, they teach black history. So I think being here in Tokyo, in Japan, it's an opportunity for every black person to stand out, to share their culture with the Japanese people and with other Asian cultures. So I think that's a big difference, is that we're able to stand out, step outside the box and basically teach the Asian people what being black represents, the good and the bad. And but for being here, a lot of it is good because our culture is amazing. We're the first people on this planet. And I'm a proud black man. I'm a follower of Marcus Garvey, I really try my best to live a life where it's a life in love, and basically show what the real black love is about. And I'm bringing people together. I have some close white friends, Indian friends, Chinese friends from all over the world. So.
I told some new people that came into my old prefecture that their experiences are going to differ between the person, the schools, the neighborhood, everything changes. So for people who come, don't let somebody else paint your picture of what Japan is. Some people are going to say that people are super racist. Some people are going to say that people are super weird. Some people are going to say that people are super robotic. Some people are going to say that people are really cool. You have to experience on your own and travel around. You have to have a well-rounded view of Japan. If you move to a certain prefecture and you stay there and spend maybe 1 week and 2 weeks in Tokyo, you're never going to have a well-rounded view of this country. So my advice is just to come as you are and be you. If you work for a company as a teacher and they don't like who you are and what you're about, that's not the company for you, and there are many more hiring. If you're in a neighborhood where the people don't accept you and they're really weird, it's okay. There are many other places to live where you can get the full experience. So I would just say come as you are, be fluffy, be beautiful, be melanated, be loud, be fun, and yeah, just come as you are and you'll fit in somewhere.
Black males in general, men, women, black people, everybody, bring deodorant. Bring deodorant. It's hard to find deodorant in this country. Advice, be you. I'm a teacher, so my experience is a bit unique. When I first got here, my company told me the objective of Japanese education is not to make people smarter, it's to create more Japanese people. And in trying to create more Japanese people, they try to make you be more Japanese. They have this whole premise about the joy of cultural exchange, and I found that in rural settings, that's not the case. They want you to be more Japanese. But the children are intrigued by you, and they want that cultural exchange, and they're intrigued by your difference. They want to touch your hair. They want to touch your beard. They're intrigued by your music. Sometimes when I go to work, I'll dress in a suit. Sometimes I won't. I'll wear my outlandish clothes, and they love it. And even some of the teachers, you can tell because of the lack of individualism, they want to break out and they want to wear, fun clothes to work too, but they can't. So be you.
I think that Japan is not Korea nor China. Japan is far beyond singling out like black people for racism. As far as I think that they actually have somewhat of a positive stereotype for us. So I think that's good for us. I think that Chinese and Koreans actually have more of a negative stereotype and actually are more xenophobic. I think Japanese are more of a social culture. They have, everybody is a participant in society in Japan. So if they were to single out certain people, then that would actually disrupt the continuity of society. So they don't really like that aspect, I think. So I don't find that there is much racism on my part.
Okay, so people should come with an open mind then.
Oh, definitely. Lately it's become, I think, kind of a Xanadu for a lot of brothers around here these days. Brothers and sisters, they're coming because they know they're not getting the same opportunities, and they're able to work different jobs. Like myself, I'm able to work high-end jobs, work in high-end positions that I would not necessarily get without a connection. You know what I mean? Without maybe my white buddy drawing me in. But I find that I have a better quality of jobs, better quantity of jobs, and more choice in jobs. But then again, I speak Japanese, so that differs from people who speak and who don't speak.
My advice to them is to come here and to be aware, observe. Over time, they will learn when some Japanese people are uncomfortable with them just because of their appearance. However, I would advise them not to try to let that be the main thing on their minds. Come here and not just try to see the negative, but try to see the positive. And at the same time, don't just try to see the positive. Make sure you can see the negative as well. Come here not to criticize and say, oh, this is better or this is worse, but to see what you can learn from the society, what the society does better than your society, and then also look at what the society lacks, like the problems there, and just try to make it improve you overall as a person.
Well, let's start with ways to get here. Well, the way that I came here, which is through teaching English. I mean, most people, the easiest way is to come as a tourist, but if you want to stay here for a prolonged period of time, you need to try and get a job. Teaching English is the easiest way. I'm in Tokyo, so I'm in a big city. I'm not in a small town, so my experiences can be very different from others who may be in more smaller populated areas. But I can say that in Tokyo, I would say just come. Don't be worried about anything. There's racism and racial discrimination everywhere, and you will find, maybe you will encounter, maybe you won't encounter that here, because there's people with bad attitudes and wrong mindsets everywhere. However, in general, I would say in Tokyo it's been great. I would say come. Don't feel any way or worried about how you'll be treated or how you'll be seen. Just enjoy life and travel the world, and don't put up any barriers because of that.
Just be open-minded. There's racism here, but it's not the same type of racism. It almost doesn't really feel like racism because it's something different. It's that this is a homogeneous society, and we're not Japanese, so they stick together, as we should. But that is the only place where you might be able to say racism, but it's not really racism. It's more like nationalism or some other type of ism. But yeah, just be open-minded, and it's really safe. Cops not trying to kill us. Brothers ain't trying to kill us. Japanese ain't trying to kill us. So I've been here 6 years straight, I haven't been home, and I don't think I can move back to the US if I left Japan. I would have to move someplace else, because it's been like therapy, not hearing sirens, not seeing people get shot, or seeing shrines where somebody got shot. And it's just a different place. But you know, our community is growing, and we need more brothers and sisters to come out here and see what it is. Japan needs more people because they have an aging society. So this is a good place. This is a good place to come, maybe before you go someplace else permanently.
Okay, one thing I should make it clear: most Japanese people are not racist. They just shy people. Most of them are.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how they've been raised, you know. And they might want to say something, or they wanna, but they don't know how to express themselves. So you might take it the wrong way, you know.
Okay.
Trying to feel like, this person don't like me because I'm this, but that's not it. Actually, they just shy. And for me, I've been here long enough to understand that, you know. So my advice is, at least from experience, I came here not knowing how to even say hi in Japanese, and that was not good, right? At least before you get here, learn the basics of the language.
Okay.
And then maybe life might be a little bit easier out here. And like, yeah, it's fun to live here. The people are nice, really nice. It's safe. The food is good.
I would suggest that you do a little bit of studies, a little research before you come to Japan. Get an understanding from studies on the culture, maybe the population, maybe the ratio of Japanese to foreigners. Then you can have a better understanding of Japan before you arrive. Also, pre-list what exactly you want to accomplish. Get yourself like a checklist of exactly what you want to accomplish. And when you come here, just go towards those things and attack those things. Some people say Japan is racist. Some people say Japan really don't know no better. It's a blend of the both, okay? It's a homogeneous society, meaning that 98% of the population is Japanese and 2% is foreigners. So whereas you might think, I'm normal, I dress normal, I look normal, I do everything normal, to Japanese that first experience gaijin, which actually means alien, you're very strange, you're very rare to them. So they will tend to either withdraw from you, or some may be fascinated and say, hey, oh, where are you from? Oh, you're from Jamaica? You're from America? Wow, you know, and engage in conversation. A lot of Japanese are studying English, but it's like a hobby or a recreational. So it's not like something that they would expect to actually engage with a foreigner speaking English. So when they get the chance, the initial thing is to be shy away. And then as, I guess, a little conversation develop, then they might come out and start having a good conversation with someone.
You gotta have a little bit of a thick skin, because I mean things will get to you sometimes and you just have to brush it off. And also you have to be a bit open-minded, because some people really just don't know. They haven't met any black people, so just be open-minded. Try to educate where you can. I mean, you might not always be in the mood, but try. And just understand that you're in a different country, you're in a different culture.
I mean, in terms of, you know, advice, there's just a roster of things I could say. But, you know, the fundamentals is definitely believing in yourself. You know, creating plans, you know, and objectives, setting goals for yourself, and trying to, you know, create a short-term and long-term roadmap to reach those goals. You obviously need to leverage with people, find people, put yourself in a situation where you want to, you know, connect with the people that will help you, and people who you can help as well. So the advice is, you know, believe in yourself, believe in what you do, and never give up. Never give up your goals. Believe in your talents and believe in others, and find strengths from others, and create great relationships.